Hi, my name's Steve. I'm also known online as Sparky at sparkysanswers.com. Today we're working on a 2005 Silverado with no blower speeds number 1 and 2. We start by removing the 2 screws that hold the hoof panel on. There is a 3rd screw over here, but it's a little bit of a pain to get on and off, so if you don't have to pull it down, we don't. The yellow wire is the number 1 speed. I have the key on, blower set to 1, power on that wire. Right now there's nothing on the tan wire, that's blower speed number 2. I'm going to reach over and switch it to number 2. Power on the tan wire, the blower switch is okay. We don't know if it'll actually carry a load, but we know that it's sending the basic power signal to the wires. Now we need to get the blower resistor out. This one's got a little bit extra problem. It's got rust in it. That means we got a AC drain tube just plugged up. Yep, water's been in there and that'll definitely kill a new resistor. We'll have to fix that before we're done too. Now I just want to show you something right now. The key's off, no power on any of these wires until you get to the red wire. The red wire has power on it all the time. It comes from the blower fuse underneath the hood in the under hood fuse box. It's generally marked BLWR. In most cases it'll be a 40 amp square green fuse. You can go ahead and take the fuse out, or just be careful like I do and don't touch that wire to anything else, because if you touch it, it's going to blow. You got to go to the parts store, spend $3 or $4 on a new fuse. On this particular truck, this is the high blower fuse, and if you want to avoid blowing it and having to go buy one, all you got to do is pull that fuse out before you do anything. I already had it loosened up because they are a little bit of a pain to get out. The thing that you have to remember when you're doing this, because I've had several people call me, email me saying, Sparky, I put the blower resistor and harness in, everything worked fine for a couple of minutes, and now all I've got left is speed number 4. Well, guess what? You hooked it up backwards. There's a notch right there, right along that side. There's a latch right there. Always index your new connector the same way before you start changing wires. If you don't, you put it in backwards like this, swap one wire at a time, you're going to blow out the new resistor. You're going to wind up with only blower speed number 4, and you got to do it all over again on your dime. Now, let's remove the tape. This is a nice little snap-on tool. Any of y'all got anybody sewing in the household, you'll recognize it as a seam ripper. You can go to Walmart, Kmart, wherever, and buy one for $2 or $3. But it does an excellent job of stripping the wires back. Now, because it's me, I do things a little bit differently, and you'll want to change, cut and splice each wire, but I don't do that, particularly with one that's not damaged to start with. First, you have to start by removing that locking comb out of both the old and the new connector. Now you also have to have a tool similar to this, a little small flat blade that you can stick in there and release the locking tabs. 1000% you have to change these 3 wires. You have to use the new updated wires. The smaller ones, if there's no damage, there's good terminal resistance to it on a drag test, you don't have to replace those if you have the skills and the tools to transfer them. I do, so that's what I'm going to do. Get the right tab, stick it in there. What you're doing is that locking tab right there you have to push it in so it'll pull out. I have the first 4 wires out of the new connector. Now I'm going to start, and I got to be a little bit more gentle on this one because I want to reuse these terminals. Stick it in there, pull the wire out. You have to bring the locking tab back out. Now you look at it one more time to make sure you have the orientation the same. You stick it in there and they'll click and latch. Now we've got the 4 wires transferred. The original 4 wires carry very little current. They hardly ever burn. When they burn, it's always caused by flashover from the other 3 terminals overheating. And if you have ones that look perfectly good and test perfectly good with the drag test, there's no point in replacing them if you have the skill and the tools to do it properly. Now we're down to we only have to splice 3 wires, and that'll make for a lot neater repair. What you want to do is you want to stagger the joints as much as possible, and you don't want to get it too close to the connector itself if you don't have to, just because the wires are going to have to bend and turn. So what we do, cut the black wire, cut both of them at the same time. Then what you have to do to get everything to line up just right when you get it going back together, you go back and cut an extra 1/4 inch off of your 1 black wire. That's going to, by the time the joint's together, it's going to make it the same length as the original 3 or 4, I should say. Make sure you slide your heat shrink tubing on. You only have 1 chance to do this, which is another reason why I transfer the wires. That way if I screw up, I got an extra wire I can work with. Alright, that one's spliced. Center up the heat shrink tubing. Most of you will use a Bic lighter, a little disposable lighter, which works perfectly well. I have this little torch that's always ready for me, and I just fan the flame over it to shrink it down into place. You have to move it around pretty regular, because if not, you're going to set it on fire. And of course, make sure there's no fuel fumes or loose paper or anything combustible around. You're going to be setting your truck on fire. 1 wire to go. Hold your connectors together. Come up above the last splice. And cut. I'm going to cut a little, my 1/4 inch off of this one because I don't want to go too deep in the harness and have to work in a more awkward position. Now that that's all in place, put the locking comb back in. It'll snap in. Look for our tape. And I always start my taping from the end that already has tape on it and work its way down. Makes for a neater job. And there we have a repaired blower resistor harness. One thing you need to make sure that you do when you get a new blower resistor, make sure it's an AC Delco resistor. There's been a big problem with the inexpensive imports in the past year or two. And if you get one of the inexpensive ones that you can generally pick up locally, or they got a super great price online, you're going to have problems because there's something wrong in their internal design to where it'll work for anywhere from an hour to 3 or 4 days, maybe a week, and then the internal ground circuit in the resistor will burn out and nothing works. So make sure you always buy AC Delco, supplied by a reputable company. Okay, now it's time to stick in the new resistor. Slide it up in the hole, get the mounting bosses hooked up or lined up. Most of the times the screws will start and run in just by holding the socket. Just finish it up by putting a ratchet on there. Snugging them down. Reach back around and plug in the blower motor. It helps if you turn the connector the right side up. Plug in the harness connector for the blower resistor. Bend the wires up. See, it looks like nobody's ever been in there before. Turn the key on and we have blower speed number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And of course finish by putting in the 2 screws that you took out and getting this hush panel back into place. And this one's done.